We'll call this regular council meeting to order of July 11th. Would you please call a roll? April 11th. I'm moving on here.
Hay.
Yes.
Griggs.
Yes.
Shivers.
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Miller.
Yes. Next item is approval of the minutes of March 28th, regular session.
I move we approve March 28th regular session minutes.
Second.
Hay.
Yes.
Griggs.
Yes.
Shivers.
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Miller.
Yes. Next item is our presentation from the Public Works Department. Mr. Schlegel.
Yes, Your Honor. This year, Drew Williford, Assistant City Engineer, is going to do our annual update of the Public Works Department.
Good evening, Council. It is my pleasure to present to you the Public Works update for 2022. It's hard to believe we're already in April here. This is going to cover our Public Works update, but also our MS4 system update. And I'll explain that whenever we actually get into it here, more towards the end of our slide. To give you a feel for what we're going to be presenting this evening, I hope to give you a good overview of what the Public Works Department is, what it does, what it's comprised of by division, and then I've highlighted 3 separate items for each division that we'll focus on and provide you better understanding for what work is comprised of those. I'd be remiss not to start, though, with our most important part of each of these divisions, and that's our people. Our people are what make our system strong. They help us make good decisions. They provide us the data. They help us move forward. And so I'd like to introduce you to our wastewater division employees. These are the individuals who handle everything from our wastewater treatment plant to our collection system, pre-treatment, to marking the locates when you see green flags and green paint on the ground. Bill Raines is our new wastewater superintendent, and his crew, they do an excellent job with keeping all of these things in order and keeping the system running well. You may notice a couple items on this particular slide, though, one of which is a recent new hire. Michael McConnell has not started, I don't believe, quite yet. And then we also have 2 vacancies that we hope to fill in the near future here. And keep in mind, these are the individuals who are responsible for a number of these items which we will be getting into shortly. Likewise, our street division staff maintains the city streets, the storm sewer system. They handle snow operations like we've seen just in the last few months, house demolitions. Its crew, led by Kevin Barker, street superintendent, do an excellent job in keeping these things up and handling the different questions, the different concerns that come up with maintenance of these types of things. I'm very proud of our team here, and I wanted to actually introduce you here. You'll notice that we do have 2 vacancies as well in our street division. So Public Works has a couple vacancies here in streets, a couple in our wastewater, and obviously engineering. You see both of us here tonight. We're here. No vacancies in engineering, but it is something that is important that we maintain a level of competency, and then also looking forward here, we're looking at what training requirements each of these have. CDL, we have to make sure our staff passes that test because each one of these, both wastewater and street division, have to be able to get their CDL, and there's far more training that goes into that. So not only cost, but time are both very critical for us right now in that we are short-staffed. One thing I will also call to mind here on this slide is we're responsible for fleet maintenance. So you'll see our mechanic, Mark Unger, is mentioned in this, and he handles most of the maintenance for the city vehicles, including construction equipment and other general vehicles. So I don't have a slide for engineering like I mentioned. We'll go ahead and start off here, though, with a quick overview of the document for our wastewater update, which essentially is driving everything, and that's our wastewater permit. So our effective date on our current operating permit is March 1st, 2019. And what I'd like to do is call attention to one item on this, and that's our expiration date. That, you'll notice, is expired. So we're currently operating under an expired permit, which is nothing new per se. But anytime you're operating under an expired permit, you always ask the question of what's next, what's coming down the pipeline. And so that's what we've been doing. While we don't know the exact date of our next permit, we do know some notable changes which will be coming. And that topic centers around nutrient removal. For now, we're focusing on phosphorus. You can also include nitrogen in that. So phosphorus is the first step, if you want to say first phase. And we're looking at nitrogen being a second phase here. And we get that from some of the webinars and some of the different conversations that we've had with DNR and other agencies, our consultants, throughout the months and years. This is a snippet here of some draft rule language, and it mentions in this a new target limit for phosphorus in particular, and that being 1 milligram per liter. So for our plant, how that impacts us, for example, let's say we're taking in water that has phosphorus between 5 and 9 milligrams per liter. Our plant can treat down to about 2.5, we'll say, milligrams per liter, in that range. But that leaves us short about 1.5 milligrams per liter. So we've got to find a way somehow to be in compliance with what we think will be the new criteria here moving forward. And that can be done in a number of ways. There are expensive ways, if it has to come to that. There are cheaper ways. The problem may be later on whenever we begin trying to handle phosphorus and nitrogen both combined. So it's something I wanted to call attention to here because we're very much keeping an eye on this particular topic. Now, moving into our wastewater division update, we're going to be following somewhat of a standard format on this. We're going to be looking at what I classify as our existing system to give you an overview of what we're actually serving, what we're providing service to, and then we're going to look at some projects that have actually occurred to give an overview of that in the recent year. And I apologize if some of that is difficult to read up there. What it says is our average daily flow at our wastewater plant, which is located on Route J, is 2.34 million gallons per day. We've got 45 electric motors, 24 pumps, 5 blowers, and 108 ultraviolet bulbs used for disinfection. Now, that's only a snapshot of the equipment out there. In truth, I was talking with our wastewater superintendent, we have enough equipment out there to merit almost a full-time person just working on preventive maintenance. Just that alone. And we can keep them busy. So it's important to note how much is involved in the processes here, especially in wastewater. One of the projects I'd like to target here that we started in 2021 and is carried over to 2022 is our aeration basin diffuser replacement. You can see in the bottom left photo what a diffuser looks like, and there are 160 of these in each of the basins. We have 2. You can see the basins shown in the photo to the right. Well, the project replaces all of these, and in that black membrane are little slits which allow air through them to diffuse into the water. This project is still ongoing, and what we had to do is kind of an interesting fact here before this could even start, and you may remember some of this because it's a rather interesting one. We had to remove snails. We ended up removing 103 loads of snails from those basins in order just to start this project. And that's probably a 6 to 7 year cyclical project because they do build up and they need to be cleaned as the time progresses there. By the way, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask feel free to interrupt while I'm on the slide. You're welcome to ask anything, and if I can provide an answer, I absolutely will. Our second item I want to
I do have a question.
Yeah, absolutely.
When you talk about phosphorus, you talk about nitrogen. Are you talking about nitrates and phosphates as in fertilizer?
Yes, that's what they're looking at. Total, all of that's going to be looked at in the permit, and we're going to be having to figure out ways to treat that biologically, chemically. There are some options to address those things.
Okay, thank you.
For our collection system, to give you an overview of what we have in the city of Mexico, what you see on the right there is a map of our sanitary sewer system. We have over 1,900 feet of, we have over 1,900 manholes with 94 miles of collection line. And we have 15 lift stations and nearly 5 miles of force main. So we have quite a system to maintain throughout the city of Mexico. And it's important to note, all of that is maintained with our in-house forces and then supplemental through contract. Some of that contract work, for example, in 2021 was our cured in place pipe project, which you may remember. We were able to line over 7,500 feet of main. That was a very successful project. Our Dukes 360 project, which acoustically evaluated almost 6,000 linear feet of pipe. And that was another very successful project, which we'll discuss more in a little bit. And then finally, our capacity management, operation, and maintenance plan, abbreviated CMOM, somewhat of a relatively new document with DNR dating back, I believe, around the 2016 era. And essentially, it's a plan which ensures that we properly maintain and manage our sanitary sewer system, and with the intent of eliminating sanitary sewer overflows and I&I. In part of this plan, we ended up inspecting 66 manholes. We were able to TV, I'm skipping ahead here, I apologize, nearly 30,000 feet of main, and then we were able to clean nearly 58,000 feet of main. So quite a lot of work being done with the City of Mexico and city forces even. One thing I wanted to highlight was what allows us to actually see what to prioritize. That's our transporter unit with a camera on the front. So that goes crawling around the city sewer lines, and then we're able to actually see what's in there. We have software which will represent the pipe and then mark on the, in essence, pipe where it's at, so we get a good report now of where these issues are, just to give you a feel for what's used. Finally, in our wastewater update, I'd like to cover our pre-treatment program. We have 8 monitored sites throughout the City of Mexico, and this portion is really important to the wastewater treatment plant, because essentially, when all of these sites are combined and domestic flow is added in, we have to make sure that our treatment capacity is not breached. So we've got to make sure that whenever you look at all of this, kind of like a pie, we still have the ability to treat, and we don't go over that. So each one of these sites is actually issued a permit, and then we monitor that throughout the year, make sure to keep on each one of these sites looking at what their levels are being discharged to our sanitary sewer system, so that in turn it doesn't cause us to go out of permit. So it's somewhat of a tracker measure that the entities can work towards. Those red dots represent the 8 locations throughout the City of Mexico. Moving on to our street division update. Want to call to mind here on the right our photo which represents the City of Mexico streets and our what we call pavement inventory. This is a group effort between streets and engineering where we look at all the streets in Mexico, we assign them a rating, and then that's how we look at providing a appropriate treatment to the right street. Our current system, we have over 78 miles centerline of street, 2 miles of alley, nearly 20 miles of sidewalk, with a caveat that the sidewalk is actually property owner's responsibility, the adjacent property owner. And the city does have multiple locations where we have sidewalk along property. So our street division does handle some of those sidewalk improvements. And then finally, we have a number of signs, over 3,200 signs in our network, and that number is growing as we get a more comprehensive inventory of those signs. So quite a lot on the street side, just in street maintenance. Looking back in 2021, we have a number of projects that they completed, the basics of concrete patching and asphalt patching, with a point here on the asphalt recycler. It's good to note, and council may recall, that the recycler in its use with the Jive product from Poet actually won the MML People's Choice Award. I believe I'm saying that correctly, Kinsey. Please correct me if I'm wrong here. Last year, and that was very much a kudos to our street division for doing good work, staying green, and finding a good product that works, that is local. So all of it worked out very well. They also handled a couple asphalt overlays. I differentiate that because an overlay is using our actual paver, not necessarily just patching. So you can think of work done on Country Club Drive, for example, last year. And then the hitch lot sidewalk, which is just down the street here on Love Street, you've seen they've been working on, and that lot is owned by the city. So we've been bringing the sidewalks up to ADA standards along that lot. Finally, something which is on everyone's mind right now, pothole patching. That's one of the things also that our street division is responsible for and that they are working on. If we get a call about it, we forward it on to them and they dispatch someone to handle that concern. They're also responsible for our storm sewer system. The map you see ahead of you is a system that's not fully complete, but is the best information we have available. It includes 885 inlets, 19.5 miles of pipe, and then 124 junction boxes. So a substantial system to maintain as well, much like our sanitary sewer system. So we're responsible for if an issue comes up, anywhere it may be. You may recall the work that ended up with replacing substantial pipe along South Clark Street. We had a big sinkhole develop there a couple of years ago, perhaps. And so maintaining that system is critical. In 2021, we had a number of projects which related to stormwater. We had one which started in 2021 and has continued into 2022 here at Maple and Wade to replace a culvert. The town branch had a number of patching work done on it between the Quantico and Liberty area. And then the airport had quite a bit of work in general done to improve drainage. As you know, the airport's quite flat. So getting positive drainage away from our structures out there is really important. And then finally, one project I would like to highlight as a good example for maintaining our storm sewer system is the Hanley Culvert replacement. And this one is located over at the intersection, essentially, of Olive and Hanley, just to our northwest here. What you see on the cones, where the cones are placed, are locations where we saw evidence of a sinkhole forming. So every single one of those points had evidence of settlement in the sinkhole forming. Once we got to inspecting it, we realized that it was a very old storm culvert, a box culvert, and it needed to be replaced. The top was failing. So that project turned into what you see there. We were able to actually do some calculations and found that a high-density polyethylene pipe, HDPE pipe, worked just fine in there for the flow. And our forces were able to go in, pull up the old culvert, destroy the old box culvert, so to speak, and put in a new pipe in its place. And we've been able to keep that yard now free of any kind of sinkholes. That's the same kind of thing, though, that will happen around town as infrastructure ages and as water flows. Finally, for our street division, I want to call to mind our snow operations here. And one notable item on this is I'm looking at the prior year, so keep that in mind. It seemed like this year, every single Thursday, we'd have something happen. But this is actually looking at the prior year. And the first thing I will highlight is actually our equipment. We've got 4 trucks with our street division, 2 1-ton and 2 single-axle dump trucks. We do have 1 spare. And the reason why I broke that out is because with our staffing levels, we actually don't have enough staff to run those trucks in the street division when they're split between the day and the night shift. So it's positive to have a spare because we can call someone in from another department or even another division and have them run it. It's also good in case we have a mechanical problem. We've got a spare. Looking at the loader, we have a snow pusher attachment now for it, which works very well in the downtown area. We have our motor grader, which works well out at the airport and for any kind of drifting snow. And then finally, our salt brine trailer, acting as a pre-treatment mechanism. That's been a tremendous success as we've been using that to spot treat areas and then treat as needed. And then on the materials side, last year, it's estimated that we used around 100 tons of salt, 300 tons of cinders, and then 10,000 gallons of brine, which is just the mixture of the solution with salt. Moving on to our engineering division update. This one will be just a little bit different. We're going to primarily cover work that was done in 2021, as we don't necessarily have the asset system that the other divisions have, but we support the other divisions in management of that asset. So you can kind of think of us as consultants in some ways there. In 2021, we had our normal transportation maintenance projects for survey and design, and we also had our cured in place pipe project, which went out for design as well. We have the Smiley Drive extension, survey and design work, and that actually is pictured in the bottom right. That is a 3D representation of the Smiley Drive extension project. At this time, I don't really have an update. We're waiting from word still from Cerro on that. The Harbison Walker Sewer Project, survey and design work, and a plan sheet is shown in the bottom there. That is in progress right now, and I received word today that they're working on wiring to get the lift station and the control mechanisms all set up for it. We're still having some problems on material delivery. Everything seems to be running behind these days, but it sounds like it's going to come together within about 1 week, and then hopefully by the end of this month be complete. And finally, one other project I'll highlight that is yet to be done is we've conducted survey work for our Pollock Road culvert replacement. This is not the bridge. This is just a culvert that essentially drains MMA's watershed area, their lake that's there. The water flows through that area there. One other duty that engineering performs is construction inspection. And this one I want to highlight a couple things on. First of all is looking at our annual maintenance projects. That's something that we routinely work with. So in 2021, we crack sealed almost 6 miles of street. We chip sealed 39,000 square yards, keep in mind that's square yards of street, and then we resurfaced nearly 12,500 or 12,600 square yards of asphalt. And these are just a portion of the programs and the tools, I would say, that we have in our tool belt now. We've expanded that tremendously, and technology has helped with that. And the asphalt for this past year, we ended up using some reinforcing fiber that we have not used before. So we're testing that out. We also have micro sealing and other treatments available to us. The engineering division, along with streets and wastewater, conducts subdivision inspections. And as you know, we've had some subdivisions come in and are currently in progress. I'm thinking Saddlebrook and Lakeside at the Oaks. We do inspect those to make sure the streets and the infrastructure is built to city standards before we accept it, present it to council for acceptance and ownership. And then finally, right-of-way inspections. This is something I wanted to highlight here in the bottom left of the screen. You're going to see a picture I took from a right-of-way inspection that I conducted. So anyone who's working in the public right-of-way, which you can generally think of as about 10 feet from the back of the street, is required to come in and get a right-of-way permit. So that's for excavation, picture, in this case, doing sidewalk work. Our sidewalk standard is 4 inches thick of concrete. And when I arrived on site, contractors showed me what they found when they had cut a piece of sidewalk. Sidewalk was 3/4 of an inch. That was all that was there, whoever put that in years and years and years ago. And you can tell how well it stood up. It's all cracked. So that's why we have inspections. That's why we have staff that goes out to review people working in the public right-of-way, street patches, all of that before they pour, so that we know we've got our proper depth and the standards are met. Now, moving on here, this is going to be a slightly different portion of the presentation. There's a new permit that has been issued for the City of Mexico in relation to stormwater by DNR. One of the new items on that permit actually relates to a annual presentation to the governing body of the MS4. MS4 stands for Municipal Separate Storm Sewer System. So whenever you hear me say that, just think of stormwater and storm sewer. Any city that is over 10,000 in size meets this requirement. So Mexico obviously is just over that, so we're classified as a small MS4 community. And the way the program is set up, EPA creates the policy, which then sends it down to the state level. In our case, the Department of Natural Resources, who then comes up with the permit and requires the city to enact it. And we enact it through what's called our Stormwater Management Plan. That plan lists exactly what we're going to do to meet the permit requirements. And that permit contains 6 different categories, or what you see here is minimum control measures. And I'll highlight that just really quickly. This looks very similar to the wastewater operating permit, but it is for stormwater. And you can see the date of issuance on this is just October of last year. So quite a bit of effort has actually gone into updating our stormwater management plan to comply with new permit requirements, and there are several new permit requirements with this. In this particular, in the next couple of sets of slides here I'm just going to go over the minimum control measures, those categories, just really quickly, and then provide a single example, in the interest of time, of what the city's doing to comply with this. A stormwater management plan is available on the website. You're also, if you have questions, you're very welcome to ask them, and I'd be happy to answer them anytime. First category, or minimum control measure, is public education outreach. So the city is committed to outreach and educating the general public. That's what this whole category is about. And in that category, we are committing to supporting Earth Day. So through Earth Day, what we're looking at is trying to present stormwater quality matters and explain why it's important to the public. The picture on the right is actually a stormwater demonstration unit that we built this last year, and its intent is to show how water travels down different types of terrain. So on the left, you see the grass. That represents an undeveloped area. On the right, you see just bare earth. That represents an area during construction. And then in the middle, you see just bare concrete, meaning a post-development parking lot, for example. I use that picture there because that's my son when we were at Earth Day in 2021. It seemed to go over well. I didn't think just pouring water was so fun for little kids, but they enjoyed it, and actually we were able to take this demonstration unit to Hawthorne and present for 5th grade this past year as well. Public involvement and participation in program development is the next minimum control measure, and that just relates to the development of the stormwater management plan. The one item I'll highlight here is a 30-day requirement for public notice and then a public hearing, which we did whenever we updated our stormwater management plan. The third minimum control measure, our illicit discharge detection and elimination system. So this relates to finding any kind of illegal discharges. Think of pollution, anything like that. You may see people draining oil into a storm drain, a concrete truck washing out into the storm drain, things of that nature. The picture I've gotten there was taken from an inspection I did when we got a call about bright orange coming out of a stormwater inlet along South Clark Street. And at the time I thought, what on earth? When I got there, I thought, what on earth? Doing some research, it's an iron seep. So there actually is no illicit discharge. It's completely illegal, and it's been going on there for a number of years. The last 3 for the MS4 program and minimum control measures here are construction site stormwater runoff control. That relates to during construction. So if you have a site of 1 acre or more, it disturbs that at 1 acre or more, then we have certain requirements that it must meet. And one of those is a pre-construction plan review process. So we'll go through with the developer, with the engineer, and explain what the DNR requirements are and what we've put into our city ordinances to comply with those. And then they'll develop the plan with the intent that stormwater is not something thought of last, because it can definitely change a site design. Our post-construction stormwater management minimum control measure is there to make sure that after construction, everything is actually working correctly. That for as long as the site is in operation, that whoever owns it will maintain those systems. We do that through our stormwater maintenance agreements and through inspection. And you may recall we've passed a number of those maintenance agreements through the council over the last couple of years. And our last minimum control measure here is our pollution prevention for municipal operations. And this one, we are agreeing to several items in this to run our city operations in a way which mitigates stormwater contaminants, mitigates stormwater pollution. One aspect is our street sweeping, a very practical item. It keeps a number of pollutants out of our storm sewer system, and even on a more basic level, it keeps things from blocking our sewers as they are draining into it. You may see leaves get in there and block things. Our crews have to periodically go in and take care of those. One item I'll mention here before I go to the next slide is that photo on the bottom right, and that represents all of those sites which are considered post-construction. Right now, we have 18 of those sites, and those are for perpetuity. So as the construction in Mexico continues, and as you get more and more sites that are an acre or more, it's going to put more and more work on the city to be inspecting these sites year to year. So it's important to know that we already have 18 at this point in time. And then finally, for upcoming projects to look forward to in 2022, we've got, I've highlighted essentially three of each division here. Our finals building HVAC project, which a photo of the interior of that finals building is provided on your screen before you there. We're going to be upgrading that in accordance with the facility plan that Horner and Schifrin put together for us. Our 2022 CIPP project, Cured in Place Pipe project, will be starting, and then our Dukes 360 program is greatly expanding. Again, that's the acoustic inspection along with flow meters to evaluate I&I, and that was tremendously successful in finding locations this past year. So we've almost tripled the size, if I'm not mistaken, in this coming year. Our street division has a pretty large stormwater project at the intersection of Love and Abbott. If you're over there, you'll notice that the stormwater facilities are pretty inadequate. We're looking at raising those, and we're looking at, improving those, and improving the street in the area. If you ever park over there, you'll feel like the whole world is tilted because the crown of that street is so high it's been built up substantially. And then we'll be doing some ADA improvements throughout the year with our street division, and then continuing our street and storm sewer maintenance. The street division is going to be concentrating on the area on the east side of town, Franklin, Rivers Drive, those areas over there for a lot of concrete work. And finally, engineering is looking at the Lakeview Spillway projects. Again, I mentioned before our Pollock Road culvert replacement. And then one on there that we've mentioned before, but has entered the survey work and will be proceeding into design, is our Mars Street project, which we hope to see moving forward smoothly because it's a logical extension here as we move forward. One last thing I want to mention, and this is an important one because there are many different discussions going on right now throughout the whole nation on grant opportunities. We're keeping our eyes open for the American Rescue Plan and also the investment in infrastructure. Those two grants in particular are coming out, and we're hoping to keep our eyes open. Been attending webinars trying to see what options are available out there for leveraging those funds. It's something that's not exactly an easy task, but it's something that must be done. So we're keeping our eyes open, and I know multiple staff are looking into those things. So with that being said, that concludes the presentation I had for this evening. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them at this time.
I just have one, just out of curiosity.
Sure.
You said we use 2.34 million per day. That's our flow. What's our capacity?
We are designed for 3, our capacity is 6.
Where'd we get all the snails?
You know, they're naturally occurring in the environment, and as far as I'm aware, it just conducts. They get all blown there through the process, if I understand correctly, and they accumulate at that point as a
They
bubble.
grow and reproduce in the trickling filter, which is just before the aeration basins. They get into the aeration basins, and then they like the oxygen.
And they're highly reproductive.
Apparently so,
You're running a prolific
because this was done.
snail farm.
This was done in.
We cleaned the basins out 10 or 12 years ago,
Oh, okay.
and then this time around. So roughly every 10 years, those need to be cleaned out.
And was if I recall correctly, were they about a foot thick at one point?
A little over 2 feet.
A little over 2 feet thick. Gives you a feel for how much quantity there is.
What do you do with them?
I believe they got land,
Yeah, they're
land
land
applied.
applied. It's lime, basically.
A local farmer, I think, was approached and said yes. So the company that was hired to remove them, land applied. something else.
Hey, Drew, you've been, listening to your report, it's really, very upbeat, very positive. Is there anything you're disappointed in, maybe you need to go back and redo, or anything that has been a concern to you that maybe didn't quite as successful as you wanted it to be?
Well, I can look at opportunities for improvement on everything. The way I look at it, for example, with streets, I always want to do more there in that particular area. Wastewater is the same way. We just don't have the funding and the resources to handle that. But I would love to be able, I've got a plan that we're working towards right now. It's a 5-year plan, trying to keep up with our streets as they deteriorate. And it's difficult. When you see our pricing that's going up, we're looking for other ways to adapt with some of these prices as they rise, but it's pretty difficult. So trying to find the resources to accomplish the task is probably a common problem everywhere, in all honesty, but it's something you certainly see when you're trying to actually put the pencil down and figure out how you're going to maintain that system that you've got, whether it's wastewater in the collection system or at the plant or the streets or the storm sewer system.
Other questions? If none, thank you, Drew, for your report. And we all know a lot more about sewers than we wanted to know, probably. Next item is council pay. We've worked all year long, and we're going to take our dollar and just go on a heyday, aren't we?
Well,
Or whatever.
Take a vacation.
Mr. Slagle.
Yes, Your Honor, as my privilege this evening is to present you with your annual salary, which is a whole dollar. So,
Been waiting for this all year.
Frame costs more than the salary.
so
right.
for appreciation
thank you.
of your service to the city.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Wow.
Oh, it looks a little fancier this year. Yeah.
Uptown, aren't we?
Yeah.
Looks pretty fancy, doesn't it?
Well, on behalf of all the council, we're glad we're all happy with what we're doing, I think. And we're all somewhat satisfied with the programs and with our employees and like with Drew and with Roger and his staff. I mean, all these people have made our job much easier as a council member because of all the good work you do. Thank you, Mr. Slagle, for the work you do for us, too. Next thing is certification of general election results, and I need a motion to accept the election tallies.
I move that we accept the election tallies.
Second.
Hay,
Yes.
Briggs,
Yes.
Shivers.
Yes.
Williams,
Can I vote yes? Yes.
accept, yes.
What's for
Miller,
myself?
Yes.
I didn't know.
Next item be the oath of the office.
Congratulations.
Thank you, ma'am.
Raise your right hand. Repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Chris Williams,
Do solemnly affirm
do solemnly affirm
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Missouri,
and the Constitution of the State of Missouri,
and that I will faithfully demean myself
and I will faithfully demean myself
in the office of City Council
in the office of City Council
for the City of Mexico, Missouri,
for the City of Mexico, Missouri,
for which I was elected
for which I was elected
on the 5th day of April, 2022.
on the 5th day of April, 2022.
And if you will sign your oath, please. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am.
All right, the next item be the election of officers, and I think David Struble, our new city attorney, is going to handle the election.
Yes. Thank you. First, we'll need to adopt rules for the election. I understand the city previously adopted a policy that no member of the city council would serve more than 2 consecutive one-year terms as mayor. That's a policy you can maintain or repeal. As for the actual election, we'll consider the office of mayor first. I'll open the floor for nominations, and I'll call for a nomination and a second. If there's more than one nomination, 3 votes are required to win the office. If no candidate receives 3 votes, we'll vote again. If no candidate receives 3 votes on the second vote, you'll vote a third time. If no candidate receives 3 votes after a third vote, we'll draw names as is authorized by Missouri statute. We'll follow the same election rules for election of the chairman pro tem. Does anyone offer any amendments to those election rules? If not, I'll call for a motion and second to adopt those election rules, please.
So moved.
And
Second.
if the clerk would call the roll on that, please.
Haig,
Yes.
Briggs,
Yes.
Shivers.
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Miller.
Yes.
All right, we'll begin with the office of mayor, and I'll open the floor for nominations for the office of mayor.
Mr. Chairman, I nominate Chris Miller.
Is there a second?
Second.
Are there any other nominations? Would someone make a motion to close the nominations?
Move and close the nominations.
And a second?
Second.
And Marcy, if you would call the roll on that, please.
Haig,
Yes.
Briggs,
Yes.
Shivers.
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Miller.
Yes.
And then, Madam Clerk, would you call the roll on that nomination to serve as one-year term as mayor of the City Council of the City of Mexico, beginning this evening?
Haig,
Yes.
Briggs,
Yes.
Shivers.
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Miller.
Yes.
All right. We'll move to the office of the Chairman Pro Tem, and I'll open the floor for nominations for that office.
You served 2 years. You served 2 years. I move for Chris Williams as Chairman Pro Tem.
Is there a second for Mr. Williams' nomination?
Second.
Are there any other nominations? Would there be a motion to close nominations for Chairman Pro Tem?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Marcy, would you call the roll call in, please?
Haig,
Yes.
Briggs,
Yes.
Shivers.
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Miller.
Yes.
And Marcy, would you please call the roll on the nomination of Chris Williams to serve as a one-year term as Chairman Pro Tem of the City Council of the City of Mexico, beginning this evening?
Haig,
Yes.
Briggs,
Yes.
Shivers.
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Miller.
Yes.
That concludes the election. Mr. Mayor, I'll return the meeting to you.
Thank you. Next item is an ordinance, Bill number 2022-20, an ordinance authorizing the city manager to execute an aviation project consultant agreement with Crawford Murphy and Tilly Incorporated for professional services at Mexico Memorial Airport. Mr. Schlegel.
Yes, Your Honor. This is an ordinance that is required by the Department of Transportation in order to do the next project at the airport. To cover the details, Russell Runge.
Thank you, Bruce. Good evening, council. The attached ordinance authorizes the city manager to execute an aviation project consultant agreement with Crawford Murphy and Tilly, as Bruce had mentioned, for our engineering services on this particular project. The project services would be to perform site visits, prepare preliminary design reports, prepare plans and specifications for these items, which are to displace the runway 6 threshold, which we had talked about before, the Portland concrete, cement concrete spall repairs and joint resealing, remark the airfield pavement, replace runway 624 edge lighting with new LED lighting, and submit FAA Form 7480-1 for alter runway threshold, and to provide bidding phase services for the construction work. The current budget allocates $350,000 for airport improvements, including pavement and replacement and new approach for runway 6. The project cost will be funded through a MoDOT grant and the remainder through planned capital outlay. The Crawford Murphy utility agreement with the city for consulting services for this phase of the project is set at not to exceed the amount of $53,000, with 90% reimbursed through MoDOT and the remaining 10% funded by the city. Staff recommends council proceed with 2 readings by title only and passage of the attached ordinance. The ordinance has been posted to the required amount of time.
Okay, I move for first reading of bill number 2022-20.
Second.
Hay.
Yes.
Briggs.
Yes.
Shivers.
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Miller.
Yes.
Bill number 2022-20, an ordinance authorizing the city manager to execute an aviation project consultant agreement with Crawford Murphy and Tilly Incorporated for professional services at Mexico Memorial Airport. I move for second reading of bill number 2022-20.
Second.
Hay.
Yes.
Briggs.
Yes.
Shivers.
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Miller.
Yes.
Bill number 2022-20, an ordinance authorizing the city manager to execute an aviation project consultant agreement with Crawford Murphy and Tilly Incorporated for professional services at the Mexico Memorial Airport. I move for passage of bill number 2022-20.
Second.
Hay.
Yes.
Briggs.
Yes.
Shivers.
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Miller.
Yes. Next, item 9, resolutions. A bill number 2022-21, a resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with Pressure Performing Arts Center to assist in providing services to citizens. Mr. Schlegel.
Yes, Your Honor, this is our annual agreement with Presser for the services that they provide to the community. To cover the contract, Chad Schumach.
Good evening. The attached resolution authorizes the city manager to enter into an agreement with Presser Performing Arts Center to assist in providing services to our citizens. The 2021-2022 budget does allow the City of Mexico to contribute to the Presser Performing Arts Center the sum of $10,000 for use in providing programs and activities to the citizens. The city's provided this level of assistance to PPAC since 2002. This is a continuation of a long and very fruitful cooperation between our 2 organizations. One of the things that I think sometimes gets lost in the chatter and all the plays that PPAC does and everything they provide is that they do act as the City of Mexico's Arts Council, which provides us access to certain grants and funds that wouldn't be available to the community without their assistance with that. So Lois Brace, the executive director, is with us tonight, and I think she'd like to have a word.
Honorable Mayor, distinguished members of the council, I want to thank you so much for this consideration with Presser. You have no idea how many, well, I will tell you how many people are appreciative of this. We have about 22,000 people come through our doors annually. In a town of this size, that's remarkable. That makes us a regional arts center, not just a Mexico arts center. So we appreciate your funding, your support in every way. It impacts our community in so many ways. All the kids from our school systems that fall through the cracks because they're not athletic or maybe they're not brainiacs, but they can perform and they find their joy and their confidence on our stages. We have a brand new relationship with Missouri Military Academy. We now partner with them by providing all of their theater arts education 5 days a week on our site. We have an arts and aging program that's new, so go to our website and check it out. But we're serving the communities in Audrain County and outside of Audrain County. So your dollars are well spent with Presser, and we're growing. We're in a growth spurt right now where we're battling over our spaces. We don't have enough space to book all of the classes and workshops and productions that we want to do, and there are people waiting. So we are growing, and we are looking at that as another fundraiser for our future. So we thank you so much. I want to make sure that out of gratitude comes happiness. And I can find no better place in Missouri where people are happier than Presser Arts Center. So thank you.
Thank you. Pleasure of the board.
I move for reading of bill number 2022-21.
Hay.
Yes.
Briggs.
Yes.
Shivers.
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Miller.
Yes.
Bill number 2022-21, a resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with the Presser Performing Arts Center to assist in providing services to citizens. I move for passage of bill number 2022-21.
Second.
Hay.
Yes.
Briggs.
Yes.
Shivers.
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Miller.
Yes. Next, item 10A, staff report, purchase of 65-foot self-propelled lift for the forestry department. Mr. Slagle.
Yes, Your Honor. As part of the annual budget, we had prepared for a self-propelled lift to replace a very much aging bucket truck. And to cover the details of the bids received, Chad Shoemaker.
Thank you, Bruce. The City of Mexico's purchasing policy allows for the use of cooperative purchasing programs when products cannot be purchased locally, and there is an advantage to the city to take advantage of bulk government bidding for a better than list price on especially large ticket items. The City of Mexico is a member of the Sourcewell Cooperative. This cooperative combines the purchasing power of 50,000 government, educational, and nonprofit organizations to provide nationally competitive pricing for services and supplies. If you'll recall from the budget process, originally we intended to buy a used tracked lift. Unfortunately, in the purchasing environment that we're currently in, used equipment is like totally non-existent. So we had to go back to the drawing board and find a way to get this project done this year. And we did that by reaching out to the people at Fabic Cat and basically bringing down Sourcewell bids until we found a piece of equipment that could meet the needs of the city and fit within our budgeting amounts. So the S60J straight boom 65-foot lift meets our requirements for a self-propelled Tier 4 diesel-powered four-wheel drive, two-person, 660-pound capacity lift. The budget allows $95,000 for the purchase of the self-propelled lift, and the overage in the purchase price is going to be provided through the $12,200 of revenue from the sale of our 2001 Ford bucket truck, number 515. Staff recommends council approve the purchase of the 2022 Genie S60J straight 65-foot lift from Fabic & Company of Columbia, Missouri for the bid price of $107,449. We will not have a delivery date on this until after we have submitted the actual order tomorrow morning. So I suspect 2 or 3 quarters, but I won't know that for sure until we actually have a live bid. They're no longer giving you dates until you have a bid on the factory, quote, delivered to the factory.
Within the year, do you think?
Yeah. Yes. 2 to 3. Right now, Steve, it's anybody's guess. There are so many parts coming from overseas that are in short supply that are holding up processes that I wish I could. This is kind of unusual territory for me because I usually know exactly when I'm getting something, and we usually have a competitive bid process, and we just couldn't make it happen in the current environment.
My ignorance is that I didn't know we had a forestry department.
Forestry Department handles the brush yard.
Yeah.
But it's one of my 4 departments that I operate. And we also do all of the tree removals for the city, which is a significant amount of work and risk. We assist engineering and streets when they have those needs. This piece of equipment will give us significantly more capacity to help them with things along right-of-ways, and because we can reach a lot farther now. Before, we were pretty limited in what we could do to assist other departments sometimes because the equipment we had just wasn't adequate.
It's y'all's pleasure.
I move that the purchase of a 2022 Genie S60J straight boom 65 lift from Fabric and Company, Columbia, Missouri, for the bid price of $107,449.
Second.
Second.
Hay,
Yes.
Briggs.
Yes.
Shivers.
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Miller.
Yes. Next item is the payment of the claims.
Make a motion to pay the bills?
Second.
Hay,
Yes.
Briggs.
Yes.
Shivers.
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Miller.
Yes. Next item are comments. We begin with the council and begin with Mr. Hague.
Congratulations to, I guess now, Mr. Pro Tem, Mayor Pro Tem, Mr. Williams on a re-election. Welcome back. I'm glad to have you. Congrats again on nomination and passage, Mayor Miller. Good to have you leading us, and thank you for leading us in the absence during your 2 years, Councilmember Briggs. So, did a great job. To Kinsey, Drew, and his staff, thanks for what you do. We get a lot of stuff going. I know it's, as you mentioned, dealing with the rising cost and getting things done, but I think as you go, I drive down Love every day in my bus, so I get to avoid all the improvements that we're doing there, and so it looks like they're doing a great job getting all the needed stuff installed that we put there. Presser Hall, thanks for all that you do in our community. Just like to note, there have been a lot of great athletes who were great in theater as well, so I just wanted to make that note, as you said that. But no, we love the theater and always go there, and it's always fun to see people become something on the stage and do that. It's a fun time. So that's all I have. Hopefully it gets warm and stays warm. That's the only other thing I hope for, So this cold weather I'm getting tired of.
Mr. Williams.
Thanks everybody who went out and voted, and I'm glad to be back. And I appreciate the nomination for Mayor Pro Tem, and congratulations. And you becoming mayor again, and you've done a really great job. You couldn't ask for better. I'm going to second the Presser Halls. My own son's been out there before, and I've got lots of kids that have worked for us and everything else that have been out there, and they speak so highly of the place. So, and some people, you don't always hear about it, but there's kids that have done at Presser Hall that have gotten college scholarships and gone to do stuff. Yes, and you don't always hear about that. It's not, but it does do good things in our community. So, appreciate that. Drew, good job on the presentation. You and your department, you guys and Kinsey, we're not forgetting you yet. You're still here, okay?
Come back up now.
Yeah, here's back. It's a good presentation, and you guys, people don't think about it, but just this fact, like with 78 miles of streets, that's a lot of streets, and people don't, they just see their one block, and it's like, oh.
Especially when it has snow on it.
Yeah.
They see their block.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Also, we had Chad had a meeting from the dog park place committee with the Humane Society. I think it went really well. I think we might have we might be able to make some movement with that. And then we met with Humane Society beyond that. So that was always good. And I think opened some people's eyes, because people always want something, they don't always think about the bad side until other people bring it to their attention. So saying that, I think I've said more than enough. Thank you.
Mrs. Briggs.
I don't know if I could add anything to it. But I do congratulate you all, Chris, for your re-election. Thank you for your election of Pro Tem, and Chris to be mayor again. And also, Lois, we always enjoy you coming and addressing us. And that's all I really.
Dr. Shivers.
Chris and Chris, congratulations. There you go. Lois, you know what I think of Presser, so I don't have to say much on that. I'm just excited that we're able to continue to support. For those of you who did not get a chance to come out for such a one as this, it was definitely a treat being able to be in it, but also just seeing the ministry and how it touched the lives of those who did get a chance to attend. So that's all I have.
Mr. Slagle.
I have nothing this time, Your Honor.
Well, I don't know how I could add to anything anybody else has said, but I do have to say that, I have a special like for Presser Hall, and I appreciate Lois being their director or chief, I don't know what exactly to call you, but you've done a very fine job for the city of Mexico and for the people of Mexico. And maybe, Ayana, you'd like to sing out for everybody like you did last night?
You were singing out too, so, only we're going to do a
Yeah,
duet.
solo would be better than. At this time, we'll take public comments. If you'd like to make a comment, please come to the podium and state your name and address, and try to hold your comment to 3 minutes. Seeing nobody come forward, I move we adjourn.
Second.
Kane?
Yes.
Briggs?
Yes.
Shivers? Yes. Williams?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes. We're adjourned.